Oh, here we are, and there you are. Thank you for staying with us. We get into the newspapers at this point. And right before we do so, let me say a very good morning to Dr. Kwame Asante. He is Director for the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Doc, a very good morning to you, sir. You'd please have to unmute for me, Doc.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for joining. I'll just do this before we start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. It's been a week since we last interacted. For you, what has been your most topical issue coming into today's discussion?
I think last week, I've forgotten the issues that we had, but I think there was something on the State Department report. Yes, the U.S. State Department report. For me, that was so critical because governance without human rights is a joke.
The one on human rights?
Yes, the U.S. State Department report on Ghana that talks about human rights issues, media freedom, and the rest of it. You know, it was very important. And over the years, the department has been coming out with a lot of reports about Ghana in terms of human rights, in terms of media freedom, in terms of political freedom and whatnot. I was not happy about the report we had regarding media freedom because take it or leave it, democracy cannot survive without media where they educate, inform, and hold government to account. So you need a free media to be able to play this important role for democracy to survive. So the report we got, to say the least, was not the best. I believe that government will set up and make sure that we improve upon our performance next time the report comes up. And it takes a conscious effort to do that. I also was not happy about the role of the security apparatus, for instance, the police, the way they handle some journalists and all that. My message is that it should get to the police that nobody is about the law. Whether you are a law enforcement agency, you are not about the law. And that people who are manhandled, people whose rights are being trampled upon by the security should gather the courage and go to court and take the police on, so that at the end of the day, all of us will believe and know that we are under the laws of this country. That worrying situation, I believe that we want to work at it and improve our performance. For me, that's a little that I can say.
From where you've started, very quickly, maybe in just about a minute, it dovetails into the Reporters Without Borders report, which puts us in a bit of a negative light. I do not recall whether we have had an interaction on that. But on the back of that, we've had a number of discussions. The GJA saying that they didn't feel would fall this low, that it is abysmal. We've heard from the NMC say things like it is the least resourced body under the 1992 Constitution. It is saying that government has consciously, government in, government out, has consciously, nipped it in the bud when it comes to fundamental independence and all of that. We've heard so many people say different kinds of things. The BBC has reflected this. We've had our own end debunk certain things and say the methodology changed and all of that. But in the midst of all of this, what are your takeaways as a political scientist, as someone in the international space?
You see, media is a critical component in a democracy. So if you see the rankings or the ratings about media and it falls so low, then it means there's something wrong with a certain aspect of our democracy. We need to work on this so very fast because, look, we have a democracy that has survived since 1992, but we know that the democracy is yet to be consolidated. So one of the things we can do to make sure that we get there is to allow the media to operate freely. That is not to say that the media has license to libel people, to scandalize people and all that. No, there are rules of the game. If you think that an action of an individual, that is journalist, is infringing upon your right, you have every right to go to court and seek redress. That is the law on that. And that you are also entitled to rejoinder on all that. But where people will abuse the media or the media practitioners, where people will manhandle them, where people will, create a situation that media itself engage in self-censorship, then we are heading for a very difficult area, which I am not sure all of us want to be there. So these are the things that civil society must also stand up and make sure that they police these frontiers and make sure that government will not have its way. Individuals who want to abuse media freedom will also not have their way. And that even journalists themselves will also see the need to take people who want to abuse their rights with impunity on. They will tell you that if you want to sleep over your rights, nobody will defend it for you. They must be vigilant enough and take their rights in their own hands and then defend it at all costs.
Let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper now, Doc. And the banner headline there, government releases 200 million Ghana cedis for free SHS. Let's take some quick details from that story. It's by Severius Kali Derry. Now, the government has released some 200 million Ghana cedis for the smooth running of its flagship program, the Free Senior High School. Part of the amount will go to the national buffer stock, national food buffer stock for the purchase of food items, while some will go to the heads of senior high schools to cater for perishables. Now, the remaining amount covers part of last year's arrears and other expenses such as uniforms, feeding for the boarding students, and one hot meal per day for the students. Now, delivering the details of this, the Minister of Education, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, who disclosed this in an exclusive interview with the Daily Graphic, said other details of the disbursement would be made available later. But for now, we're working out, of course, he is speaking here, are working out how much will be apportioned to each of the areas. The most important thing is that the government has released 200 million Ghana cedis, and this is good enough for me. Even as you react to this latest disbursement, we've heard of issues, Doc, where the schools were not properly being serviced by the buffer stock, and there were shortages and all of that. I mean, just a few months ago, we were talking about this issue. But put that into perspective. We have heard from different parties talking about free SHS in recent times. Otumfuose to the second, the Asante Hene, has said that it is creating challenges when it comes to employment or unemployment, that free SHS has its own worries. He's also looked at the bit about quality in certain aspects. Only yesterday, then, we also heard from the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Angel Kabonu, who is indicating that the free SHS is approaching a cul-de-sac, a dead end, and that it's going to be a challenge for government rolling it on. So this disbursement, but looking at it in the light of what the Asante has said in recent times, what the NAGWAT president is saying, what is your reflection?
Yeah, I think we are in a very difficult situation. Let us admit that this program, there's no doubt about that, it's a good one, free SHS. But, when it started, civil society experts cautioned government that do you have what it takes, the financial muscle, to be able to show that this responsibility. Government turned deaf ears on this, and now it has come to hand government. I believe that government must be sober and reflect on these things and engage those stakeholders who can really help for us to safeguard the process. It is important to do that because there's no point having a flashy program like this, and then in no time, you are going to have suffer some setbacks. The good news is that there are people who are ready to support government. Government must be able to open its arm and welcome these people on board so that they can look at these things and we fix it. It is important. My worry is that, yes, we have seen figures being thrown out there, the effort by government to improve senior high school and all that. What about basic school? Yesterday, I listened to, some stories about the fact that all is not well at the basic level. Class 1 to classes, they are without textbooks. And since the introduction of the new curriculum in 2019, they are using other materials other than textbook. And what is happening to the textbook production? What is more is that I read about the Educational Watch NGO talking about the fact that there are a number of schools in this country where children do not have writing desks and all that. Some sit on bare floor, some use stones and all that. It's a very sorry story. At this point in time, that government is trumpeting on high roof that is doing a lot to improve education and that we've neglected the basic education. Let us remember that the basic education is the foundation of everything. We need to get the basics right. So I am surprised that in spite of all the noise, the rhetorics, we are paying lip service to what basic education, class 1 to classes. It's unfortunate. Government must quickly double up its effort to strengthen that place because it becomes pointless when you put more emphasis on secondary school education and you leave what the basic one. They are foundation. You need to get all these things right. So I think that government will listen to such NGOs and then do the needful and improve the performance resource base of such programs so that at the end of the day, we will not talk about what quality, which is in the negative. No.
But the Asante Hene also points out, and this is reiterated by the NAGRAD president, when he talks about the fact that free SHS is putting a lot of strain on the national budget. That is true. But on the other hand, you must look at the social benefits of a policy like free SHS. Some analysts felt going into the current budgetary window and all of that, and even in light of the e-levy, that would consider looking at some of this government's flagship programs, about 16 to 20 of them. That was not done. Should we do that? Should we streamline, re-strategize free SHS?
It's a necessary requirement that we need to satisfy. We need to streamline it and make sure we get our priorities right. There are a lot of waste in the system. If there is a need for us to cut some of these things and then push money into areas we need money most, why not? Why not? And I don't think that government wants to sit down and allow this beautiful program to collapse. It's very, very important because there are a lot of waste in the system, corruption and all that. If we are able to save a lot of money from these sources, which get into people's pocket free of charge, then we'll be able to strengthen these programs, which are very, very, very necessary to drive the economic fortunes of this country. So I think government must be serious about this. There's no point developing a very robust educational system without proper financing. Then it becomes an exercise in futility.
Let's take a quick look at two more stories in the Daily Graphic newspaper and then move on from there. Page 13, which focuses on gender. And there's that story, Child Health Promotion Week. Don't seat children in front of moving vehicles. That's according to Dr. Edward Ainchi, Program Manager of Newborn and Child Health at the Ghana Health Service. And he is advising adults against placing children in the front seats of their vehicles while driving. In case you didn't know this is what the law says. Section 14.1 of the Road Traffic Act 2004, that is Act 683, on carrying of children in motor vehicles, among others, states that a person who drives a motor vehicle on a road when a child of 5 years or under 5 years is in the front seat of the motor vehicle commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding 100 penalty units or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or to both. So that is the charge. And why should children not sit in the front seat? Dr. Ainchi, who was speaking in an interview, explained that when children are placed in the front seat of vehicles or at the back seat where they are not properly secured in seat belts, should there be a sudden stop or if the brakes are applied, that child could easily hit himself or herself against the windscreen and sustain injuries. Sometimes you see children fly through, the screen. And so that must be taken care of. But for you, Doc, The Constitution must meet aspirations. That's on page 17. Some panelists at a public lecture to commemorate 30 years of Ghana's constitutional democracy have called on the citizenry and those in leadership to make the 1992 Republican Constitution deliver the kind of development that, quote, we expect as a nation. What would you like to see in that regard? And that's my final story from the Daily Graphic.
If you look at, let me start with the health story about driving with children placed in the front seat. It's a worrying situation, and I'm surprised that we continue to have such ugly spectacle within the transport industry. Why? What is the police doing? And sometimes I get worried that things that the law prescribes, and you see the police not enforcing those rules. I'm surprised. You see, we end up with weakening the capacity of the state. Look at issue of turkey tail, which has been banned in this country. You see police walking past people selling these things, and then nothing is being done. All over now.
The issue of firecrackers.
Yes.
That is also there.
What is happening? And yet we say that we are a law-abiding country. We believe in rule of law. We enforce it. These are all noise. We don't want to do the right thing. But let us remember that when we fail to allow the law work, at the end of the day, we will have ourselves to be blamed. Then come back to the Constitution and all that. I believe that, look, there are a lot of things that we need to reflect on if you want this Constitution to stand the test of time. Of course, there are some aspects of the Constitution that need to be changed, but we should be very careful when we handle this. There are some aspects that we need to work on very, 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 very fast, because there have been a changing circumstances of our situation. So we need urgent, amendment to reflect the needs of today. Let us also make sure that after changes have been done, we go to enforcement. We can come out with all manner of rules and regulations, but are we ready to enforce them? Are we ready to make the Constitution work and stand the test of time? That is the difficulty that we are facing. But I believe that we are all interested in firming the frontiers of this country and country's democracy. And if that is what we want to do, then we need to up our game and get the basics right in terms of rule of law, in terms of its application, and in terms of making sure that everybody is free to do what is required of that person within the framework of the law.
Okie doke, let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Transport fare adjustment. GPRTU urges public to bear with 20% increase. I'm sure you've felt it out there as you've boarded public transport, buses, taxis, from wherever you've been going. 20% increment. Here we are again, Doc. There's been another increment, 20%, after the 15% in February. Some say it is too much, but the transport operators point to a number of things. They talk about the prices of spare parts. They talk about fuel prices. They talk about so many components, exchange rates and all of that. And they're saying it's simply impacting their work and lubricants and all. And they can't, make do. So here we are with another 20%. How does this end? No one knows. Your thoughts?
It's a difficult thing, but I'll come back to things that I've said here, that we need to engage experts to get this thing fixed once and for all. I recall some of these things when Professor Dimensa spoke about them. Beautiful ideas. What have happened to some of these things? We need to go back and reflect on these things and make proper use of them.
Are you speaking of his recent? Are you speaking of his recent comments or comments from the past?
No. Previous past comments.
Right.
Not recent. Yeah. There are a lot that we can do in this area. I am surprised that it's gradually becoming a ritual, and there seems to be no end in sight. Last 3 days, I heard a story that government is supposed to meet the transport groups for a discussion before the Crusade Jack. They have announced, transport people have announced fares and all that. Why are we having such difficulties? Let us engage the proper stakeholders on this matter. Let us look at how to fix it and fix it forever. And if we are not ready to do such a diligent work, We will always come back and blame everybody, blame ourselves. But let us remember that all these things affect transportation affect every sector of our economy. So if we want to do and fix any problem here, we must do it now, because time is not, on our side in terms of rolling up serious economic programs and allowing the transport sector to also facilitate this. It's so important. We need to do things very, very, very fast. It appears to me that we are very slow. We are not ready to solve this problem. But let us remember that the more we pay lip service to this problem, the cost is going to be high.
Other stories from the Ghanaian Times newspaper. We're ready to partner government to ensure successful implementation of e-levy. And today, one of the questions we're asking, a week on, how are you accommodating the e-levy? What has your experience been like? We'll be interacting with a key player in that segment. But for you, Doc, I don't know how much of mobile money transactions you do, but what has been your experience since the e-levy hit? Or have you had deductions when you were not supposed to have been deducted in terms of any transactions you've made? What has your experience been like, or what have people shared with you?
Yes, having experienced my difficulty with regard to what we are talking about, because I think so far everything is fine from my side.
Have you been transacting?
I have. And I experienced the normal deductions and all that. But we have also heard stories from government that, from experts, I think GRA and all that, they are raising some amount of money from there and all that. The point is that we should not be too excited about the revenue we are getting from that area. Yes, of course, it will go into development of this country and whatnot. But how to make effective use, prudent use of such resources is what we need most. Why were people resisting this? Because some thought that, look, this is going to add to the kitty, but its application is going to be undermined. We urge government to be very careful and make prudent use of these resources, so that the next time you introduce any taxation, you don't get the kind of opposition that these levy brought some weeks ago. Simply because we abuse such resources, and then we lose the trust of people who have reposed confidence in us and put us in public office. We must be very careful about this.
Let's quickly look at this final story here. 1 million sub-Saharan Africans risk cancer mortality every year. And you know it, cancer, no cure. So unless you see it early and have the right procedures, you could be in grave danger. But what is this statistic? Where is it coming from? More than 1 billion people in sub-Saharan Africa could die of cancer annually by 2030 if rapid interventions are not put in place to tackle the increasing cases and mortality, a new report on cancer has revealed. Now, launched in Accra yesterday, the report named Cancer in Sub-Saharan Africa, a Lancet Oncology Commission, said cancer mortality in the region could rise from 520,348 in 2020 to about 1 million every year in the next decade. The report, compiled by 54 oncology international experts over a 3-year period, revealed that the estimated 800,000 annual new cancer cases recorded in 2020 could double in subsequent years. So that is that statistic. A bit of a worry, especially in our part of the world where these things are often left undetected. You go and you may be told it is this, that. By the time you find out, you're close to your grave. So pretty difficult in terms of our health infrastructure and this new development. Quick thoughts, Doc?
We need effective education at all times. We don't have to relax on these things at all. Because, look, as you have rightly said, in our part of the world, we don't have early detection, systems that will help us to address these problems. So the time you realize you are very close to your grave. We need to strengthen our efforts in that direction. And 2, we need to also get people educated on lifestyles. There are certain things when you do, you end up having cancer. So these are the things we have to shy away from if you want to survive and want to live for a very long time. And then, of course, there must be regular checkups. We should develop that habit. It is not something which is common in this country. But elsewhere, you see that for 6 months, 1 year, people go for checkups and all that. We need to be able to do this thing in no time if we are supposed to prevent the increasing rate of cancer cases in this country.
All right, and this one we're not going to dilate on. It's an issue, it has come to the fore again, but I just wanted to look at the semantics of it. Boku chieftaincy dispute, 5 killed in reprisal attacks. That's the story there, Mr. Editor of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. A reprisal is already a retaliation. Using it as a noun, no need to say reprisal and attack. We could have left it at reprisal. The Daily Guide newspaper, NDC picks flag bearer in February 2023. Doc, so they've come through with their plan, signed by the General Secretary, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, and we see how they're going to move from branch all the way to the highest levels when it comes to electing those who are going to be representing the party at different levels, and also the flag bearer. I do not know whether you've cited this document and what your quick reflection is on it in terms of timelines.
Oh, it is okay. The earlier they put such structure in place, the better, so that they will have about 1 year to prepare, get their messages right, get their candidates also properly shaped for the action in 2024. I think the timing is okay. All that I always say is that they must have plan that will really get them the votes, plan that will get them the right candidates for the right electorate. And of course, they must have strategy. And all these things are driven by research. The political parties, what I've seen is that in recent times, they are doing well. They are getting their research outfits, doing a lot of research for them. They must be encouraged and do more, because see, if you go to advanced democracies, you can never go to any election without getting certain bases right. One, you need to have done exit poll for the previous election to have some knowledge. Two, you should be able to pick data from the ground in terms of research and be able to develop strategy, get message, and be able to launch an effective campaign. I believe that when they are able to do this, they will be able to get the needed vote that they want to be able to win power. And of course, they must be mindful that you need professionals to help them to execute this. They should get closer to the professional groups, such as the think tanks, the universities. They will help them to shape their policies so that the policies that come from political parties are not policies that is just going to win them vote, but policies that reflect the lives and then the needs of the society. Otherwise, they will come out with all manner of policies and they will not be able to implement. And then it becomes a deception in politics. We don't want that.
Well, the internal elections will kick off on Wednesday, June 15, 2022, with the branch executive elections. But let's get into Republic Press newspaper. Some very interesting stories. First of all, Meteo alert, today to Thursday, not safe for fishing on Volta Lake. And you know why. There are some developments in terms of the weather patterns which will not be favorable. And we've seen that in recent days. There have been some rains here and there. But I'll tie two stories into one. ASAP backs electricity tariff increments, and 178.44 million Ghana cedis lost to power theft. That's according to the ECG. Doc, we know the ECG is looking for a tariff adjustment of over 140%. And there's also the Ghana Water Company Limited, which is looking at over 330%. When you look at these two, some are saying we're already struggling in this economy. How can you slap us with more? But the two entities are also saying we need to do the right thing. We need the right resources to be able to give you water and electricity. Your quick reaction.
Yeah, much as I agree with them, trying to get the needed resources to run the various organizations, they should also be mindful of the fact that we can't pay money and let it go waste. There are a lot of things that are happening within these two companies that are not good enough. Take, for instance, the issue of people connecting electricity illegally and all that. What is the company doing about it? And same for Ghana Water Company. The quality of service that they render also sometimes is nothing to write home about. You see people fetch water and you see particles and all that. electricity, you see power outages and all this. See, there's no point trying to get, prices peg higher for you so that you get enough of revenue. But how do you ensure that there's quality? The person consuming those goods or services must also ensure must get value for money. We pay and we want the right services to be delivered. They must be mindful of that if they want to be relevant, because otherwise, one day the time they realize you have a private company coming out to provide this service, and once that happens and we get the right services, they will be abandoned. And I'm not sure that is the route that they want to take.
All right, Doc, to wrap the conversation, I'll put out 3 headlines from 3 different papers, and you choose those that you'll speak on. The first one is staying with Republic Press. Methodist disowns e-levy bishop. That's the Methodist Church. And it has to do with Bishop of the Obuasi Diocese in the Ashanti region, Right Reverend Stephen Richard Bosomtwe Ayensu, the Methodist Church Ghana. And the church has distanced itself from some of his latest comments. One of those topical ones being that former President Mahama would not even assume the reins of power in 2024 to talk of abolish the e-levy. That is the first one. Today newspaper says terrorists now close to Ghana. Security expert warns. That is Emmanuel Bombande. And he's been talking about the fact that some of the strikes of terrorists in recent days, months, weeks have been very close to Ghana, as close as some 5 kilometers. And the final one I'll look at, financially, SOEs, state-owned enterprises, require structural governance reforms to be profitable. That's according to Dr. Ishmael Yamson. Your thoughts? 3 issues.
Yes. Let me take the first one about the Reverend Minister and the comments on Mahama will not get the opportunity to come back and all that. I mean, sometimes I get worried when men of God begin to act like political scientists and they want to predict and say things that are not founded in research. All right. There's nothing wrong for a religious leader to share your views on politics and all that. But you must also be careful that you are leading a congregation and you are not going to divide the group from your political comments. Where is he coming from? What research has he conducted to be able to arrive at the conclusion that Mahama will not be able to get the opportunity to lead a party or even win election and all that? That is unfair. And these are comments that, if you don't take care, they attract attacks. Verbal attacks on individuals and all that. We don't need that. We need to be measured and tempered when we are dealing with such issues. The issue about the other one, what is it, please?
So we have SOEs and we have terrorists now close to Ghana.
The terrorist story is a worrying one, but the good news is that our security has always been solid. I trust them, and I know they are working day and night. It is a difficult exercise for them, but in spite of research or resource constraint, in spite of certain difficulties and all that, they have been able to up their game. So I believe that they are keeping an eye on these, people who want to destabilize Ghana, and I know that they will be able to deal with this problem head on. It is just a matter of time, but I trust that the security will do a good job. Okay. And the last issue also.
SOEs require structural governance reforms, Dr. Yamson.
It is something that we need. Okay. We need at all. If you look at the resources we will pump into developing SOEs, and we see waste happen there, a lot of money slip through our fingers. We are not able to account for them. Yet we are saying that we are building them to create employment, to generate revenue, to run the affairs of the state. But at the same time, we sit down and without doing anything, money slip through our fingers. That's unfortunate. We need effective management of such organizations so that at the end of the day, Ghana will ensure value for money in such areas.
Thank you, Doc. Always refreshing. Thank you for joining us this morning, and do have a beautiful day.
Most grateful.
Dr. Kwame Asante is the director for the Center for European Studies. He joined us. Up next, sports.